why it's important to have a trust, will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy. The stats are like less than 30% of the people will die with some type of estate plan.
And that's just like bare minimum. That's not even comprehensive.
Absolutely. And so wouldn't it be better to have some type of plan going into it? I said this to other people, but we had a 90-year-old client, mid-90s, and he said to me one time, he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "You don't understand. I don't believe I'm going to die." That's great, but we're still going to make sure you're prepared because, you don't want your loved ones to get stuck.
So how do you manage the conversations? Welcome to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. If you ever asked, how do I protect myself and those I love if something unexpected happened to me? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Niki Weiss, and together we'll explore how to protect yourself in a world where both your physical and digital legacy leave a lasting impact. And welcome back to another episode of the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. Today, my guest is Paula Harris. Paula is a financial advisor and has been around for decades, helping people build out a comprehensive financial plan. But Paula, you and I connected on LinkedIn, and it was because of the death tech conversation I was having. So please share your story and what got you here today.
Sure. Thank you, Nikki. And I applaud you for educating people for the work that you're doing, because too often people avoid things, and that's just not helpful. So my husband Bill and I have our financial planning practice based in Massachusetts. And, early on when I was growing up, my grandmother Mary, she was widowed at age 50. And I watched this woman live the rest of her life alone, and sort of, how do you navigate that and figure it out? So I can't say that I was thinking about financial planning then. But as I got into the business, about 25 plus years ago, it was a driver, women, especially, having to make decisions. So traditional households where the man took care of the money and the woman took care of the budget at home and like the family. But we know that curveballs come out of left field all the time, and they just wreck a plan. And so you might have thought you'd have, your 40, 50, 60 years together, and it doesn't happen for whatever set of reasons. And I think that getting people prepared, whether it was for retirement, for a curveball hitting their life, to take that bucket list trip, it's just putting a plan in place and working towards it. That's what really got me motivated. And I have the joy of working with my husband. And so it's been fun to create this together, which is really neat.
And when you're working with your clients, they come to you because they realize, all right, I have assets and I need help organizing and navigating through the investment opportunity.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple opportunities. One, got an email this morning, a woman that we talked to probably about 8 years ago, wasn't really ready to do anything. She's single. She actually came to a presentation we did last week. I actually didn't recognize her. The presentation was on retirement. And she's now, that much closer to retirement. She had gotten a separation notice from her employer. She's been working somewhere else for a little bit. But after that presentation, she realized, I really don't know a lot of things, and I need to have more knowledge before I go into this retirement phase. A couple came to us she's mid 70s, he's late 70s. And it's like, what happens? We have homes in 2 states. Where should we have residency? What happens when one of us goes? And in this case, he has a pension, but he took option A, which means the pension dies with him. And there's no income.
Did she know that when he signed that?
That I don't know, because it was one of those, all right, looking back isn't going to help us, but looking forward. And she's the total driver why they came to us. I mean, she's scared. You can see it.
People don't realize it. They don't realize there's casually, they're excited to get a new job. They're so excited to onboarding. The onboarding process is a bit overwhelming. They're filling out their beneficiaries, and 401k plans, and pensions don't exist anymore, but in most places, but they really don't understand. And then time passes or an event happens and they're like a deer in the headlights.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. So it's like, okay, so when you die, she loses that, and she loses one of their 2 social securities. So the double whammy, because you only keep one social security, the highest earner. And they have 2 properties. Says, well, she'll just sell the other house. Oh, I said, in her grief, she's going to have the capacity to do that. And let's say, what happens if we have a economic downturn and it doesn't sell? It's like, oh no, it's in a really good area, it will sell. You don't. I mean, we just assume everything goes up. So people don't often think very clear. So you also have that issue of, okay, one spouse wants to plan, one doesn't. So guess what? That's a plan, and you didn't plan. And typically, the one who is more dogmatic wins. You can only force somebody to do something to some degree, but the chances are he will die before her. He's older, and men outlive women to begin with, and she will be left with a mess.
I mean, statistically, yes. And I just want to do just a slight pivot on caregivers.
Sure.
And that we assume that, someone older, less healthy might go first, but the stress on a caregiver tends to overweigh, and sometimes the caregivers end up leaving before. But either way, when they come to you, they're not thinking about end of life. They're just thinking about, hey, I got this chunk of change, and I don't know what it means to put it into different accounts and long and short-term risks, and how to plan out just for today, much less for tomorrow.
People also think, they forget all right, so there's investments, but we look at everything financial.
Holistic.
So people
holistically.
Holistically. It's very holistic, but most people only think about their investments. And so it's like, well, I just need help here. And I was like, no, it's all tied together. And in talking to just one couple, it's like, okay, I know you want to talk about what's the most advantaged tax state to live in. Is it Florida? Is it US? Is it Massachusetts? But we're seeing flags other places. We're seeing that you tell us that you're spending $250,000 a year and you have $250,000 in retirement savings. You just want to think about one little piece, and we're going, wait, no, all this is tied together. It doesn't matter what investment return you get. You got a way bigger issue. You got you don't have enough money.
So as a financial advisor, let's just call out when you're assessing someone to come in, what are the main questions you ask them to understand that holistic view of their financial status, and as for me as a risk manager, when I do risk assessments, you really do need to be asking these very detailed scenarioed questions. So what is your interview process like?
It's interesting. It's not very financial. It's more of what you'd consider a SWOT analysis.
So for some people who don't know what a SWOT analysis is,
it is, you're looking at someone's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So we start with 3 years. If we're sitting here and it's 3 years in the future, what do you want to see happen over those 3 years that you feel like you're making progress and you're satisfied with life? Because beyond 3 years, it's hard for people to plan, especially if someone's younger and, someone's 40. Hey, we're going to talk about 80. They're like, I got so much before that. I've got kids that are going to go to school, graduate. I got to retire. They don't want to think. So we try to do it in 3-year chunks. And then we ask, what's getting in the way of you moving forward? What might wake you up at night? What is a mess that needs to be cleaned up? What just keeps gnawing at you? So that kind of gets to the danger piece. And then what opportunities? So what's going, what do you want to make sure you take advantage of? That could be like, we really want a second home. Well, yeah, we want to start a foundation. We want to provide education for our grandchildren. And then say, okay, what are your strengths? You know what? We've made a lot of money. We have a good family. I have excellent earning ability. I have a can-do attitude. So through that conversation, we get the financials out of that. And we also get the bigger picture, sort of like how things are moving together. And if someone will say to me, oh, I'm fine, I sleep well. I go, oh, do you have an estate plan? No.
That sounds like denial to me, Paula. Like deep denial.
I actually presented last week on a program. It's called Age Well, Live Well, Die Well. And an estate planning attorney and I usually are at the front of the room for this one. And it's, what do you need to be prepared for? And, why it's important to have a trust, will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy. But the stats are like, I don't know, less than 30% of the people will die with some type of estate plan.
Oh, and that's just like bare minimum. That's not even comprehensive.
Right.
And now
well, one of the people
for
in the
me,
room,
as a digital thanatologist, just to add the conversation of your digital assets? I mean, right now we're talking more
Yeah.
about the physical and financial, but I mean, do you even get into the like passwords and cryptocurrency?
That's going to be more interesting. So I'm going to say dabble. We don't participate in the crypto world in our investments for clients, but that doesn't mean they don't hold them separately. But that is going to be a very interesting world because there's nothing physical with it. So if someone doesn't know about it, they will never know about it. So if you didn't tell someone you held it, you gave them the key to it, the passwords,
Seed phrase.
The seed phrase, they're never going to know.
Or even if they do have the
Ever.
seed phrase, they might not know how to get into the account to make the transition,
Yep.
to make the transaction move from, you know, from from the blockchain onto into a crypto exchange. It's very
Yeah.
complicated.
And more people are participating. More and more people, at any, income level, like any age, are participating. We had a 75-year-old come to us and she said, I want to have gold and I want to
Oh
have
gosh.
crypto. It was like, okay, you want super risky and you want super safe. Like, so people are like, they're hearing about it all the time and they want to participate. But if you don't have a good system, for telling people, so the paper system, okay, that's, you can put things down on paper, but there's risk as to, well, you better keep it in a safe or a safety deposit
Well,
box.
I don't advise
But then
safety
did you
deposit
tell?
boxes, just so you know. I am
Okay.
anti, I mean, and I've had conversations with bankers, and they're saying the complexity of when someone dies, getting your things out of the safe deposit box. So now we say just go to your local store, order a fireproof, waterproof box and keep it in your home.
Oh, and
Yeah.
keep it at home. That's good because we've recommended it, but unless you have the key and you have the, all the information.
Nowadays, in the old days when the technology wasn't as accessible, but now the bankers or the banks don't even sell safe deposit. I mean, they have them available, but they don't push safe deposit boxes now.
I am going to go talk to a banker to learn a
Yeah,
little more
ask
about
them,
that. So thank
because
you.
getting into a safe deposit box after somebody dies, even if they have co-signers, it still has to go through a legal process, and it could take time.
And it's weeks to months probably.
Anytime we say legal,
And
there's a dollar sign attached to that.
yeah, that's true too. You're
But look,
absolutely
we're
right.
learning
So
something
get
new
that
from each
safe
other
at home.
today.
Yeah, that's why I love doing these conversations, because you do learn from other people. And as you probably know, not everybody wants to talk about death and dying, and it's such an important
Why is
topic.
that?
But we just, as a society, I think we're just afraid of it. Like, it's gonna, death and taxes, as they say, are the two certainties in this world. We're born to die. And it's what we do, it's that dash in between our birth date and our death date is where all our living happens.
And yet
But
death
people
is
still,
indiscriminate. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't
right.
care your socioeconomic, your health. It doesn't care. It will come. And, whether it's as we always say in my final playbook, is like either sudden and unexpected, or that terminal diagnosis, or the third, which is that long-term care plan. Either way, you're going to
Yeah,
have a financial impact in any of those three scenarios
absolutely. And so wouldn't it be better to have some type of
right now.
plan going into it? And, I may have said that, I've said this to other people, but we had a 90-year-old client, mid-90s, and he said to me one time, he's looked me right in the eyes and he said, you don't understand. I don't believe I'm going to die.
How do you respond
And,
to that?
he has a good sense of humor. He has a good sense of humor, but I will give him a look. He was driving until this summer. He is very focused on living,
And I get that.
um,
Live fully, die ready,
yeah,
though.
right,
and
right,
and to go down a little bit of the rabbit hole, I mean, I get that, we might be able to, at some point, be able to download our consciousness, and, be able to download
yeah.
our thought patterns. And so there might be a part of us, certainly our digital footprint will live forever, but this physical body only has.
So much mileage. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So what was your response to him?
Um, you know, that's great, but we're still going to make sure you're prepared because you don't want your loved ones to get stuck. And I think I just want to finish what thought we were talking about is, what do you do for those digital assets? I'm a big fan of services like LastPass. to at least to store your passwords. I mean, I don't know how many passwords you have. I've got to be well over 100 in
Yeah.
my password manager. You have to change them, and I kind of keep them on paper. It's crazy. And this client that I was talking about just a few minutes ago, we met with his family, and they have a safe, and we said, okay, great. All right, does everybody know where the safe is? Yep. But the last time we tried to get in, we couldn't. So I was like, okay, here's the to-do out of this meeting, is to try to get in the safe while everybody's healthy, and so that everybody knows how to do it now.
Even
So,
to create some sort of digital documentation of somebody going into the safe. I mean, I hesitate to say that. Just go ahead and videotape somebody going into the safe. As long as it's an off, like you take that video and then store it off the internet, in a hard drive somewhere, even if you have a hard drive. And I do recommend to people as they're building out their comprehensive plan is that you have, yeah. So, you have a hard copy, right? You have the book,
yep.
And then you have like a cloud-based copy. And then I also say, have some sort of hard drive, because you want to make sure that it's redundant, because fires and floods happen, cyber hacks happen,
California.
and sometimes even with the thumb drives, like there's a corrosion, or you just don't know.
Well, we presented last week, and my husband and I have Macs. The other woman presenting had a PC. We had a smart TV, and we, just even getting our thumb drive to connect, we needed another cord. It was just like, this is a pain in the neck. So in technology changes, that's the other thing. Think about my iPhone. My Mac, it doesn't charge the same way it did 2 years ago. They have new cords.
And that's all part of it. The company's productivity or product development there. Well, let me ask you, so as a financial advisor, do you have your legacy contact set up on your iPhone?
I do. And I need to double check. I believe my husband does. I've also done it with my Facebook account. I'm trying to remember if LinkedIn allows.
It does. I can go ahead and send it to you. It's a little, but it seems like these, we need to be proactive in setting up these legacy access. It's just, that's part of that playbook. And then with your clients, right? You can only just talk so much about it before it becomes overwhelming. So how do you manage the conversations? So they go from procrastination to activation.
Sadly, there often is a life event that gets you out of procrastination into activation. And whether that's, I got a text yesterday from a client. They were on vacation, and he fell and broke his hip while being in Mexico. They luckily bought the travel insurance, and so he was airlifted to Florida so he could have his surgery. That will then prompt them to do a lot more things that they may have been putting off. But that's tough. They're mid-80s.
And are their children or family members able to support them?
Yes. So one child went to Mexico, one child went to Florida to be with them. We've had conversations with children, and they know, secretive parents. They know that they don't tell everything. So we've included, adult children in meetings. We've had an adult child go to estate planning with them. But there's, like you said, there's only so much you can do. You point things out and you say, okay, this is going to be an issue. So you try to include family. The other day we showed up, and luckily there were 2 family members for this older couple that was there. So, we learn as our clients age, and, different things keep happening. And it's like, okay, now we're going to put durable power of attorneys on your investment account. So we custody at Schwab. Schwab, like most brokerage houses, don't really love the forms from the lawyers that say, this is my durable power of attorney. They have their own form. So it's like, okay, we've made the decision that once someone hits the age of retired minimum distribution, which is currently 73.
That's so late.
We're going to have that conversation with everyone.
It's so late. Yep. That makes me nervous as a thanatologist.
Well, tricky, because then there's the emotional side. So a 73-year-old today is probably the equivalent of like a 63-year-old 20 years ago. If you told a client who's 65 now, oh, there's a chance you're not going to be around and you're going to die, and we need to have somebody else on the account. This would be for single clients, because husbands and wives, if there's a joint account, it's still less of an issue. But for your single clients, 65 is awfully young. And people don't want to necessarily think about it. And it's this balance between behavior management, which is a lot of what financial advice is becoming, is really behavior modification. So it's okay. What's an age where this, it's very easy to say, we're all treating you all the same. Because I also, in my gut, if I told you, first of all, at 65, you have to sign up for Medicare. Oh, and we think you may not be incapacitated someday and you can't, manage your own accounts. It would be, I think, too much emotionally for people to handle. That 65 is a very tough time, and Medicare is like, oh, I have to go on Medicare. For most people, some people are excited because then it solves the healthcare problem. Like, I can be retired and I don't have to worry about where my healthcare is going to come from. So it's a balancing act.
I mean, as a financial advisor, it feels like you have a kind of a superpower, also having to be family therapist and life coach, and like it's not just
Yep.
talking about the dollars and stock options. It really is trying to get people to take a look
Absolutely.
at holistically, this is your life. This is your life today.
Mm-hmm.
This is your, what you're hoping your life will be tomorrow, but you need to
Yep.
plan for the inevitable.
Yeah, and it is so much about the conversations and drawing. We do a lot with family meetings. I've got 2 family meetings that I'm in the process of trying to craft and encourage. And one is with a group of siblings who inherited property, and another is with a mother, children, and the transfer of the business. And it's delicate because just everything comes up. All that comes up. I actually had breakfast yesterday with a gentleman who's a business consultant, and he said he has worked with a family who, like, all that stuff coming out. They're doing a meeting, and the son is not happy, who works for the mother, and just starts dropping the F-bomb everywhere. And he's like, excuse me, this is a professional setting. If, this is your boss, this is not appropriate behavior. And it's like, but it comes like whatever was tolerated in the home, it was like pouring into the workplace. But that's not fair to all the employees, to anyone. But crazy
So
stuff.
having these, so let's talk about family conversations, right? Because this is sometimes where it started. And I know I have to share that I was actually talking to one of my clients today, and she, and she's in her 40s. They don't have, I kept driving intestate, trying to let her know, like, you don't have a will. Let's just get a will done, just a simple will, just so you don't die in intestate. And then as we're talking, I tried to bring out her parents, and she became very tearful because her parents, who she loves, she has not had these conversations with her parents. So here she is trying to take in her own mortality and trying to plan and do what's best for her. But now she's like, all of a sudden, this wave of emotion of like, oh my gosh, I have to have these conversations with my parents. And so when you talk about the family conversation, right? To me, that's like, it's honorable work that you do, Paula.
Yeah, it is. And it's very rewarding. And I had the prep call last week with the matriarch, and to see her, she's been stuck for a while, just to see her, like, I can't even tell you how happy I am that we're going to be doing this. Like, this
Oh
is
my
such
gosh.
relief. And a couple of times she said to me, you're trying to push me over the cliff, aren't you? You're trying to get me to jump. And I'm like, I want you to enjoy life. And you just said the word freedom, and that's what you're wishing for. So, like, let's help you get to that freedom.
So
But we get
let's
so stuck.
just right there. Let's be on the edge. Let's just, as professionals, like, be on the edge. Like, as professionals, we're on the edge with you, but we want you to jump, because if you don't, then what, Paula? I mean, do you tell them
Yep.
the chaos that can ensue by them not leaning into this process that we've developed for them?
Yeah. So I usually will use some example of either a client that we've had, or a fairly well-known story that, this is what happens when you don't plan, or, or if you don't make decisions, let's not talk about even the financial aspects. Let's talk about like how dis-ease shows up in the body. If you're not dealing with something, you can get sick, and disease is dis-ease often showing up. And so I bring in a lot of, very holistic, uh, different topics. And some people get it, some people don't. You kind of know who you can bring it up with, but it's like, do you really want, if you have 10 years left, do you really want it to be in this much discomfort? Like you've worked this hard, enjoy it.
A life
So
well
it's,
lived. I mean, you've spent so much time and focus on building a life worth living. So why don't you
yeah,
just make sure that when you're not here or incapacitated or you get that terminal diagnosis, that you can still have that sense of peace of mind and not like,
yep,
I just got the terminal diagnosis. I have 6 months left. Oh my God, I have to now spend it,
buttoning
finding
everything
my
up.
passwords, organizing my
I, you
photos.
know, we had a client diagnosis January, death was in early July, and they didn't, if we talked about him being sick, it was a cancer diagnosis, that would mean it's real, and that might mean that something would happen. And so it was like, hope, treatments, let's do all this. He died, never telling the passwords. Well, it created a huge issue, and we helped and we unwound it. The two sons had to get involved. Well, guess what? She moved like a year later and she found the passwords in the desk drawer stuck up there. Like if they had just talked about it. I have a friend and her husband passed away in September and then in June. And when he got sick, the first thing they did is they kind of made it with humor because he had esophageal cancer and it was not something he was probably going to recover from. It's like we did date days. We went to the funeral home and we planned funeral. We went and we picked out gravestones. And he told me, like in grave plots, like what's going to happen. And
Wow.
this is what is my wishes. And what a gift. And then to follow
Oh, I just got the chills. I mean, just
the
take a moment.
journey.
Like it was like a date, like a
Yep.
dead date
Yep.
theme,
Yeah. A live dead
a
date.
live date theme. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband and I, we went to the funeral home to do pre-planning, and it was actually like an interesting conversation. Is like, to
Interesting.
be now we kind of opened it up, but I didn't think about it like making it like kind of yeah, let's go to the funeral home, do our pre-planning, and then we'll go out to a nice dinner afterwards.
Yeah, and I think, it's part of that I think comes with sometimes your outlook in life. It comes with, how do you bring humor in? Some people are always serious. It is a heavy topic, but again, it's going to happen to all of us. And she still struggles that he's gone, but she's in, I think, a better place than if she had ignored all this. She leaned into her faith tremendously and talked about it and the messages she would send out and like the Caring Bridge update. And oh my gosh, it just helped connect everyone. So she allowed people in the process too. So if you close yourself off, that, to any of the possibility of what you might plan for, it makes it harder.
So for people that don't know, you mentioned Caring Bridge. People might not know that what that is. You
Sure.
just do a quick.
So often when I think probably most medical hospital facilities offer a service that you can sign up for, which allow, instead of you having to call everyone and tell them the updates of what's going on with loved one, Caring Bridge, you post it there, and then people can sign up to get the email alert, and then you can update everybody. It's a many to one. You one time do it to many, as opposed to having to do that over and over and over.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, I mean, you and I, as I said, we're on a mission to just open up this
Yes,
conversation so people can live fully, die ready. So, for your services and the people you support, where can they find you? And then
sure.
also maybe a couple takeaways they can do right away to start building out that plan for you.
Yep. So I'm found at whcornerstone.com, which is our website. And then I'm on social media under my own name, Paula. I keep my maiden name in there to be found, but Paula Sullivan Harris. And I would say takeaways. Our website has a resources page, so there's some great things in there. There's a workbook called Prepare, that if you got that sort of curveball, like these are the things you need to start getting in place. You need to have your team of advisors. That would be your financial advisor, an attorney, a CPA, a clergy. your medical team, if that may be the need, but getting that team of advisors and that everybody knows them. Often one spouse will have set up relationships, but the other doesn't participate. We require that our married spouses come together. So that's really important. There's on that website, there's also a document called 28 documents. So these are the documents you need to have. Have your marriage license, have your military discharge papers, have your estate plan and your healthcare proxies, all these types of things. Have them in one place. So that's accessible.
In my final playbook, we call that a crucial doc box.
Love it. Crucial doc box is great. And then, the thing I would say, if based on our conversation today, whenever I speak, or, you've taken the time to invest listening, it's great, but you got to take action. So think for yourself, what's that one thing? Yes, I can do that. I can have the conversation with my spouse. I can make sure my iPhone, has a legacy. I am going to book the appointment with the estate planning attorney. I'm going to, go see the financial advisor. Whatever it is, that's at least one step that gets you closer to being prepared. I ask that people think about what that is for them.
Like I said, it's a step-by-step process. It's highly emotional, but you have support, and there is a roadmap that both Paula and I are willing to support you in. With that, Paula, thank you so much for sharing and your passion and professionalism. We are on a mission, both of us, and with that, we can end here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Niki.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. I hope this conversation inspired you to take control and plan for the inevitable to protect yourself and those you leave behind. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at digitallegacypodcast.com. Remember, life is full of surprises. What happens after you die shouldn't be. So keep your passwords safe and your playbook up to date.